I'm really surprised at times by how many people are interested in how a shower floor is built. That probably should not surprise me because the shower is one of those more challenging projects that a pretty handy and motivated homeowner might want to take on. Setting the tile on the walls and floor is not intimidating to them, but the shower floor, building it from scratch out of concrete, is a mystery. If that describes you, let's unravel that a bit. I have a two-part video series linked in the corner that I did a few years back, and it's still one of my most watched. I answer questions from people all the time who are obviously already in the process of redoing their own shower or are getting ready to take it on. So based on some of the questions I get, I'm going to take you through the process of building a shower floor from start to finish, and also fill in some of the things I could have covered better in that first set of videos. Now, this shower is probably one of the most involved ones that I've ever done, in that there are lots of features to it that go well beyond standard. So while it's very custom, the process is still step by step, completing one thing at a time to get to the end result where everything is put together as it should be. I'm doing the step in a different way from the earlier video because it is a three-sided design and will have a 3/8 inch frameless shower door installed on it. A part 2 video will also cover installing the corner seat and prepping the walls for tile. The key ingredient for building a shower floor is a mixture of Portland cement and sand that I'll be referring to as dry pack. Dry pack is very easy to make, and it's simply a mixture of regular old sand, or play sand in this case, and Portland cement, which can be found at any home center. The 50-pound bags of both of these products are the easiest to handle if they're available. They're combined in a mixture of 1 part Portland cement to 4 parts sand. The mixtures don't have to be exact, but you want to be fairly close on that ratio. I used my shovel as a measuring cup, and in this small mixing pan, I put about 6 shovels full of sand and then add 1.5 shovelfuls of Portland cement dumped on top of the sand pile. To mix that, I move the pile back and forth from end to end by chopping through it and pulling each chop up over the top of the pile as I move it to the other end of the box. If you do this about 3 times, you'll see that the mixture turns the same grayish color, which tells you that the Portland and sand are getting mixed well together. I can add water to this mixture in different quantities to get a cement mix that can be used for many different purposes. If you do things around your home and you keep in mind how simple it is to mix sand and Portland cement, you'll find a lot of uses for it. For the purpose of the dry pack that goes into the shower floor, I'm going to add just enough water to make the entire mixture damp enough to cause the Portland cement to set up, but not anywhere close to what you would expect from typical cement. If you pick up a handful of this mixture after adding water and squeeze it and see water in the mix, it's a little too wet for optimal dry pack for a shower floor. You can see that the sand is wet enough to stick to my hand, but the mixture is not runny like you typically see concrete. Dry pack that's a little too wet will still work fine, but it's just a bit more of a pain to work with when floating a shower floor. When the sand mixture is compacted into place, you can then take wood strips and use the edges to cut the material and shape it to the slope and configuration you need for your shower floor. Learning to work with dry pack is the single most important skill that you need to develop when doing a shower floor. You get better at it the more you do it, and I now routinely tell people when I'm answering questions about building a shower floor that the second one they do, if they ever do a second one, will definitely be better than the first. And it's because the more you work with dry pack, the more you begin to understand how versatile it really is, and you get better and faster at working with it. Since this shower is being built on a wood subfloor as opposed to a concrete slab, I needed to verify that the structure of the floor is able to carry the weight of a bunch of concrete being placed on it. After doing that and repositioning the drain and water lines, I was ready to get started building the shower. I cut pieces of metal lath to place under where the step is going to go. The pieces don't really add anything structurally, but they do help me align the step as well as help tie the whole step together after the bricks are set. Nothing fancy about building the step. It doesn't have to be a great quality job like a bricklayer would do, but it does help to try and keep it level as you're putting it together. I'm going to add what's called a pre-slope now, which is a layer of dry pack that slopes from the outside of the shower down to the flange on the shower drain. The only purpose for this is to provide a surface for the shower pan to rest on that will direct water to the drain if water ever reaches the shower pan. That's it. Doing a pre-slope is really good practice for the next layer of dry pack, which is the really important one. I'm using 1.5-inch strips of 2x4s and the bottom plates on the wall and seat to give me a gauge on how thick the pre-slope needs to be. It's going to taper down all the way to the flange on the drain, where the thickness of the dry pack at that point will be maybe 1/4 inch. It will crack there, which is fine. I use my hands, my fist, my fingertips, a large trowel and a small trowel to press and pound the dry pack into place, then shape it to the slope and contour that it needs to be. I use 1/4-inch strips of 2x4s of varying lengths to cut the dry pack. This is something you have to learn how to do. It's not difficult, and it is kind of fun. In addition, it's a lot of physical work on your arms and shoulders. Again, the goal is to get a straight line that tapers from the top of the dry pack at the exterior of the shower down to the flange of the drain, and then cut and carry that line all the way around the shower. Once you have packed the material well, you can trowel it with the flat trowels. In my case, mostly I use a small plaster trowel to smooth the surface, just like it would if I were finishing concrete. It's not going to be just like concrete because that's not really its purpose, but if you do it right, you can create a solid surface to set tile on. The only other thing to remember is that you want to place the entire floor as a part of one single process. Don't do half the floor and come back the next day and finish the other half. The larger the floor is, the greater that challenge is. The following day, the pre-sloped dry pack is set up and ready for the next step, which is to install the shower pan. You may wonder if the pre-slope is really necessary because it's going to be covered with a shower pan anyway, so does it really matter if it's there or not? My answer to that is if water ever gets to the shower pan, you want it to work its way to the drain and not pool up under the shower floor, so you want there to be some kind of slope to the drain. How you accomplish that, either with dry pack or some other kind of structure, is really up to you. For me, if I'm doing this for a customer, I do the installation as I am in this video. If I'm doing it for myself or in some other kind of custom circumstance, I may be more willing to experiment a little with my processes. In a follow-up video about how I deal with this seat design and the shower pan, I'll talk more about making these cuts for an outside corner inside the shower. It should make you nervous to cut the shower pan this way. But when you have to do it, you just have to do it. My personal preference is not to install these types of seats in showers. I'm putting screws in near the top edge of the shower pan wherever I need to hold it in place, but I want to keep those penetrations as high above the finished floor as possible. In corners, I designed this area in ways to fold the shower pan in between studs so that I don't have to cut the pan at the corners, and also avoid having to fold the pan in such a way that it bulges out and affects my wallboard so that I cannot push it in flat against the studs. There is a special adhesive for use with the shower pan that allows you to patch areas like this to create a watertight seal. I used a couple of layers of the liner material here to build this area up so that it is watertight. When trimming at the step, I'm cutting the shower pan material off so that it covers the top of the step but not the front. At this point, I also cut the hole for the shower drain and try to cut it as closely as possible to the inside edge of the open drain. Some people will put some type of sealant underneath the shower pan where it rests on the drain flange. I don't think it's necessary personally because the drain clamps down on the flange when its bolts are tightened up, but that's something you can do also. My next task is to cut pieces of metal lath that will wrap from the front of the step over the top and then into the shower. These will be 3 individual pieces that are bent into the shape of a U and will actually clamp or grip the step once I finish bending them into shape. This is particularly useful in this shower because we have 2 large panels of stationary 3/8-inch glass with a 3/8-inch glass door that hangs off of one of the panels. So I'm going to beef up the step more by using a method I don't often use, but it's actually a really good way to build a step as well. But before I do anything further with the step, I need to drop in the final dry pack to set tile on. The process is the same as it was for the pre-slope, except this time I'm going to be even more precise and shoot for 1.5 to 2 inches thickness completely across the floor, including around the drain. It matters a lot that you get everything right on this dry pack because tile will be set on it and there's no way to go back and fix anything with the exception of maybe slight surface imperfections. The goal is 1/8 to 1/4 inch per foot slope from the perimeter of the shower floor down to the drain. I did add a little gravel around the weep holes of the drain because I know someone will ask. It is fine to do, although I do not pack the dry pack tightly around the weep holes in lieu of gravel at times. If water finds its way to the drain, it will get through the weep holes in either case. One of my sticks that I use to cut the dry pack with will have a notch on one of the corners to match the thickness of the tile that's going to be set on the floor. Cutting the dry pack around the drain with that stick will allow the tile to be just about 1/16 of an inch above the top of the drain. You also want to make sure that the slope is accurate all the way across the floor with no pockets or areas of the floor that will hold water. As I said earlier, every time you do one of these showers, you learn something and you get better at it. But that doesn't mean you still can't get the job done okay on your first try and give you something that will last for many years if you follow the process. With the dry pack work complete on the floor, I cut wood forms to place on the front and back of the step and poured a very thinned down version of my dry pack mixture into the forms to encase the metal lath and the step. I also needed a real consistent slope from the front of the step to the back of the step to keep water in the shower. I used thin set to fill the voids in my less than perfect cement work before setting tile. This process takes a little longer than other methods I use, but it's also a really good way to make a step if you want to take the time to do it. Now we're down to setting the tile floor, and you want to make sure you get the tile set and grouted before doing anything further to the shower in order to protect the surface of the dry pack. The dry pack is a great product for use on the shower floor because it allows water to pass through it easily and make its way to the drain, but the surface of it will break down if you start putting any kind of foot traffic on it. So get the tile set and grouted. Cover the tile with drop cloths or cardboard to protect it for the rest of the shower build. I lay out the tile in such a way as to make as few cuts as I can. I hate cutting these small floor tile pieces. When I get the layout the way I want it, I pretty much start with setting individual sheets of tile as they lay on the floor. As I'm setting a sheet, I make sure and press every individual piece of tile in the sheet into the thin set. Around the drain, I knock off the sharp edge of the tile on the tile saw, and if need be, I take a Dremel tool and polish the edges more as needed. I'll pick up from here in a follow-up video where I talk about building the seat and the kinds of things I keep in mind to make sure the seat isn't a leak problem down the road. As I said, I'm not a big fan of building seat-thin showers this way, but sometimes that's what the customer wants, and so that's what the customer gets. Drop any questions or comments you have in the comments section below, and as always, thanks for watching.